Really hoping I don't write another 200,000 word novel though. I would love to finish this book before the end of the year. I have an idea for the next scene very loosely. I'm just gonna say good luck Harrison is the vibe. I'm tired and I have green juice, so let's talk. So right now I'm afraid of writing. I don't really want to do it, which is crazy because as somebody who literally spent every single day of November thinking about my book and writing my book, you'd think I would be very comfortable to get back into it. But the problem is at NaNoWriMo, I got to exactly where I want to be. I'm at like the climax of the book, but I'm really uncomfortable, I think. I'm in this stage where I don't want to write this because then I have to finish the book, and it sucks to finish a book in a way because then I have to start another one. And I also like where my book was at. I finished like basically the end of an era. I have been writing in the Peterson estate. So the Petersons are a family of characters. So Harrison, Reeve, and Foster end up driving to the Peterson estate to get some help. The context is that this is for my novel Seventh Virtue, which is contemporary fantasy. They end up driving to the Peterson estate to see if they can get some help from Darren, who is Reeve's ex, to help them track down Humilitas, which is the mystical bird that Lonan, who is Reeve's brother and Harrison's ex, is part of. So Lonan is literally related to Humilitas in the way that they are like the same thing. I think they get to Darren's in like maybe chapter 6 or something. So like for over a year I've been writing in the Peterson estate. It's very uncomfortable to pivot. I don't know if other writers feel this way, but whenever big changes happen in my book, I'm not excited about them. I know a lot of people really look forward to these like big dramatic scenes, but I think the older I've gotten, like the less I've gotten excited about the big things and the big shifts happening, because I like the middle. I like being comfortable in the project. It makes me feel nice. I know a lot of people hate the middle for that reason, where it can kind of feel like you're getting nowhere, but the middle of a book is where like I'm most comfortable in it. I know the voice. I know where it's going. Anyway, with that said, book still has not been touched since November 30th when I finished NaNoWriMo. So I want to get at least to 160K before the end of the year. I'm at 155. I think if I have the goal for myself, it will incentivize myself to sort of get over the fear. It's one of those things with writing where the more you put it off, the worse it gets, because every single day I'm farther and farther away from writing. I'm like, this is so weird. I would love to finish this book before the end of the year, but knowing me, I'm not going to do it. Hey guys, I'm in my brother's studio where I sometimes film videos. Let's talk about writing last night, because I was a little emo boy about everything before I actually did it. Something that I learned in particular in NaNoWriMo is that writing is so much less scary for me when I'm doing it more frequently. This wasn't really like a chosen break. It was more of a break because I was like, well, I don't have to do NaNoWriMo anymore, so I'm not gonna be writing. And so I can kind of just get away with not doing it, which is fine. Like sometimes you don't want to write. This was not one of those cases. It just kind of snowballed and time was moving without me. So yesterday I took some time to do what I thought I was going to do and reread a bit of the book that I was missing out on. I particularly took some time to reread a scene I had written a couple of weeks ago with Reeve and her shitty ex-fiance Joel. The reason I did that is because I needed to be in her mindset, in particular in her relationship with him, because of something that's happening now. So I went and I reread that memory. It was good. I've been listening to a lot of Sarah Kinsley, who I love. I mentioned her in I think one of my last vlogs, but I've been loving her music so much. Caught Up in a Dream is a Raven energy. Raven is my ship name for Darren and Reeve. So her music has been very helpful to get me in Reeve's mindset. Music has never been this helpful. I guess it always has been, actually. Let me revise. I guess I just don't remember it being as helpful as it has been, but I've found it like extremely important to the process. Then I went in and I reread this whole scene that I was writing, and I already knew I felt kind of disappointed in it. I thought, you know, maybe the characters need to have a bit of a moment of success because they haven't had one in a while, and I need to kind of have like a Last Supper moment, for lack of a better reference, where everybody can kind of get together, have this, you know, last moment together before everything kind of falls apart. I thought I was going to go back in and revise that. Originally, that was kind of my plan in my head, but then when I was reading, I was like, I don't need that. Like, it's fine. And also, like, it will be too repetitive if I do that, and, you know, I can add it later if I want, but I decided I'm not gonna go in and try to perfect everything. It's fine. It's fine the way that it is. I already have a list of things I want to revise in Seventh Virtue. If I feel like I need to do that, I will do that at that point. I went in, reread it. Honestly, it was fine. This is one thing, like, for 2 weeks, so irritating. I've been sitting being like, I'm not super happy with this thing, and I think subconsciously, but very consciously, honestly, it was conscious at some points, I'm just gonna avoid this thing because I don't really want to deal with it. I don't really want to read it. Like, I'm a bit tired to do some revision here. I just decided I don't give a shit. I'm not gonna revise this, whatever. It's gonna be the way that it is. And it was fine. It was totally fine the way that it was. I thought it was paced poorly. That was my main concern. It was not. It was fine. And so I went in and I just, added a couple sentences here. I expanded on a couple of things here, and that helped enough to the point where I'm now back into drafting, and the drama is piping hot. It's been a couple of days since I last updated this vlog. Writing has been weird for me the last couple of days. I've actually been doing a lot of reading. I think I've read like 4 books. I finished up If an Egyptian Cannot Speak English. I finished up Katie Wismer's book 3 of her Marionettes series, which was called Bloodless Ties. I also read Winter in Sokcho. So good. My friend Shaylin recommended I read it and was so right. It was perfect. If you want the perfect read, that is it. It is the epitome of everything I want in a story. It was fantastic and it was short. I also read Am I Disturbing You by Anne Hebert. That was also really good. It's also a novel, but it's also a translation from French. It was very, very short. Style is a bit more formal, but it's also so rich and fantastic. The writing in Winter in Sokcho and the writing in Am I Disturbing You have been so inspirational for me. So one of my commenters left a really great comment on my video. I posted a video yesterday, which I actually filmed yesterday, of me talking about an issue I'm having with writing called I Am Afraid of Writing My Book. And I had a really great comment, I believe, from Vivian. I'll pop up the comment on screen. It was said in the comment something along the lines of write what we are like most wanting to read, I think. And the comment was just really great because I have been wrapped up in really short books. If an Egyptian Cannot Speak English by Noor Naga in itself is very short, and then Winter in Sokcho is really short, and so is Am I Disturbing You? Like, they're all really tiny compressed stories, and I've been really wanting to write a story like that. So yesterday, instead of writing Seventh Virtue, which is the thing I've been working on for forever, I decided to play around a little bit with a novel opening for my novel Houses with Teeth. Now, Houses with Teeth has been a book that I've been, oh my god, meaning to write for a really long time. It has been many different things. It has had many iterations, but I finally settled on this story that is essentially actually very related to Seventh Virtue, which is funny because Houses with Teeth informed Seventh Virtue, and now Seventh Virtue is reinforming Houses with Teeth. In Seventh Virtue, one of the narrators, Reeve, has a relationship with her ex-fiance, Joel. I've been wanting to tell Reeve's story, this particular story, for a really long time. It's actually what got me to like rush the ending of book 6 of Fostered, which was rewired and I finished in 2019 because I was really keen on writing Reeve's story and her story in the context of this relationship. I tried writing the book. It was supposed to be book 7 of the main series of Fostered, which is wild because it is so vastly different. I'm so glad I didn't write it as part of the canon. I rewrote it over and over again. At one point it involved sinkholes and missing girls and murder and stuff like that. Like, it was a lot. And then I just psyched myself out so much about it that I never wrote it. I actually wrote Feeding Habits as a means to procrastinate writing that. And of course, Feeding Habits took me 2 years, and here I am now because it took so long. I've always wanted the book to be quiet, very compressed, very short, like the books that I've been reading. Because I've been so enthralled with the short form vignettes, which all 3 of the texts that I just mentioned, Winter in Sokcho, Am I Disturbing You?, If an Egyptian Cannot Speak English, all of those are written in the vignette form, and I've been wanting to write something like that. I wrote the opening of Houses with Teeth a couple of months ago, and I was so excited about it, but I haven't worked on it because I've been working on Seventh Virtue. So yesterday I was playing around with it a little bit, and I wanted to read an excerpt before I jump back into sort of how Seventh Virtue is doing. So this is an excerpt from chapter 2, which I don't know how I'm structuring the book. I think just for organizational purposes, I need numbers because I'm going to not remember like where in the book this particular thing happens, but I don't actually think I really want chapters. I just kind of want them to be vignettes like throughout the entire book. Here is one of them. When she was in college, she dreamed of one day owning an art studio. It's not like she was a particularly great artist. The best thing she'd made was a terracotta vase with flowers hacked into the surface by the tip of a pencil. She'd made it in a free pottery class that she sometimes took on weekends. The last time she'd attended was probably a year ago, squished in the back row of a historical kitchen turned boutique turned studio, only after 4 p.m. on Wednesdays. Otherwise, the boutique stood in its full indie pop film camera corduroy tote bag glory. It should have been strange how, in the weak green haze of dawn, she stared through the windshield at the cabin and could not remember how she'd even made the vase. Had she washed her hands first? Had she worn an apron? Had she spoken to a classmate about her fleeting post-college plans, about the art studio she might have named something gaudy like Smart or Artomica? She knows she kept the vase and that she'd left it on his apartment's kitchen table where it always sat, a discreet barrier between them at breakfast. At daybreak, long before he'd wake, she'd sometimes slip out of bed, her body as slinky as silk, and sit in the kitchen, studying the vase. Sunlight would pour through the window above the sink and onto its surface, seeping through a tiny hole she accidentally nicked in the kaolin clay, and then through the other side where another hole had been punched. The trapped beam cast a tiny ochre circle on his print of Manet's Olympia, then disappeared once the light's angle changed. She knows almost nothing of her pottery class, but at least she knows this. So that was kind of the vibe. I wrote all of that yesterday. I don't even know how much I wrote. I think it was probably 1,000 words yesterday of this book. And I've not really been wanting to write it at the same time as Seventh Virtue. I kind of want to take my time with this, but it's a project that's really been calling to me, and it's fun. I haven't felt this inclined to write literary fiction in a really long time. So the fact that I am excited about it is just really great. So I think it's going to be the project I work on after I finish Seventh Virtue. I'm so excited, and I'm so close to finishing Seventh Virtue, which let's talk about. Seventh Virtue and I have had a fun relationship. I posted that entire video, the AuthorTube Real Talk. Check that out because it basically sums up my thoughts. But in essence, I have been avoiding that book because I'm kind of scared of writing it. It's not at all about perfectionism. I don't care if I write badly. Seventh Virtue is just for me. I don't have expectations. The problem lies in me not wanting to finish this book because I don't want to leave it behind. I love it so much. And also, I'm not very good at what I'm currently writing right now. I did NaNoWriMo for Seventh Virtue, wrote 50,000 words. And then when December started, wrote absolutely nothing. I did write a little bit, like here and there. And the most I wrote, I think, was a couple of days ago. I wrote 1,000 words in Harrison's point of view in chapter 38. Funnily enough, this also coincided, me not writing, coincided with Word removing the fantastic natural voices that are installed, like so that you can listen to your work, the text-to-speech, which is a feature I use literally all the time. Now, I've admittedly become spoiled with the voices on Word. I grew up using like the really, really, really crappy robot voices in literally Google Translate. I got really used to the natural voices though, really fast. They were introduced on my computer, I think in like September. I know they've been around for a while, but Microsoft is kind of stodgy when it comes to dishing out the updates. So I got really used to them. And listen, Microsoft Liam, who's the English Canada voice. Hi, my favorite narrator ever. Microsoft Liam has my whole heart. He is like my Harrison narrator. I hear his voice and I'm like, this is Harrison. You know, Harrison doesn't sound like that, but if he had a narrator, like he would sound like Microsoft Liam. Okay, like my audiobook narrator, Microsoft Liam. I was devastated at the end of November when my computer ended up, it kind of reverted back to the original robot voices, which is Microsoft Linda and Microsoft David, I believe, if you're Canadian. Microsoft Linda and I have a very close relationship, okay? I've been using Microsoft Linda for like 5 years. So I was devastated when I lost her originally and had to hang out with Microsoft Liam. But imagine my dismay when freaking Microsoft Linda shows back up, because I love Microsoft Liam. Like, he really motivates me to write because it sounds like an audiobook. If you never listened to the Microsoft natural voices, you have no idea what I'm talking about. You gotta go check them out, okay? If you got Microsoft Edge, just try them out because you can get them on Edge, which I was gonna do. I just didn't want to export my whole book as a PDF and then like read it from there. I was being spoiled, okay? Like I said, I was being spoiled. So I was suffering through Microsoft Linda. It just wasn't the same, okay? Microsoft Liam has an intonation. He has an intensity. He knows exactly where I'm supposed to be putting emphasis in the words. And he just wasn't there anymore. I shit you not, yesterday, the voices came back. I don't know. Microsoft has been doing this. They've just been pulling the voices, putting them back, pulling them back. If anybody knows a permanent solution to this, let me know. They put them back. And I kid you not, my will to write flooded back. It was after the video that they came, like when I filmed that video that I posted yesterday, that they came back and I was like, this is what I was missing the entire time. The voices. The writing wasn't the problem. I just didn't have my audiobook voices. I just listened to everything that I've written in Seventh Virtue since the end of November. Amazing. Fantastic. Feeling so inspired to write. It was the voices because Microsoft Liam is back. So TLDR, I need the Microsoft natural voices, and if you know a permanent way so that they don't disappear on me, let me know. I'll see if I can find an excerpt. This is Harrison being a firebender. Harrison doesn't need intuition. What moves him the moment Redacted's body hits the quartz tiles of the Redacted's ballroom is not just simple instinct, but an omnipotent understanding that he's primal, that he has energy, and that, above all, he needs to burn this room to the ground. The circle of flames appears like he simply tracked its shape in gasoline and lit a match. Are his palms burning? Does it matter? At one moment, he's a normal human leaning over Redacted's body, one hand filling up with blood. Ooh. And in the next, he's a scarlet ember, the other hand engulfs in fire. There's no time to question why Redacted is bleeding at all, or why Harrison suddenly managed to spark his magic. Nothing at all matters when he spots him. We don't know who he spots, but it's Rama. Hey guys, I'm back for another update. Let's talk about writing because, you know, it's going pretty well. It's going pretty well. Yesterday, I made quite a bit of progress on Seventh Virtue, which was positive. I decided to kind of shift back to the project. I don't know why. I was just kind of feeling it. I've been just trying to listen to the impulses that my body suggests because, you know, my intuition is almost always correct about everything. So I wrote about 2,000 words last night. It was honestly pretty grueling. I remember getting to 500 words last night and I was like, 500, this has felt like a lifetime, which is pretty rare with Seventh Virtue. Seventh Virtue is the type of book that kind of writes itself. It's simple. I'm not trying to be fancy. It's kind of fast paced. So usually I don't really have issues writing it super quickly, but it took me like probably an hour to write that 500 words. Maybe it wasn't an hour. Maybe it was 15 minutes and I just have no concept of time because of how slow the process was. I had felt yesterday a couple of times that I wanted to just stop writing and go to bed. But, you know, I also told myself, like, I really don't want to wake up tomorrow morning and have to write this again. I really am tired of this stupid scene. I've been working on it for like a month. I don't know how I used to do this before. I really hate drawing on my process so long. I just want to get in and out of a scene as soon as I can. If not, I start to get super bored. And while this is supposed to be exciting, I'm not excited. So I finished it, which is fantastic, which means part 4 of the book is done. We're at chapter 39, I believe now, which is going to be the start of part 5. The book is at 161,000 words. Can't complain. I mean, it is my second longest book that I've ever written at this point. I realize that I've probably messed up like the structure somewhere because I am kind of, this is a little bit of a hot take. If you're like an overwriter, which I don't really know what kind of writer I am at this point. Sometimes I underwrite, sometimes I overwrite. The problem is usually because you're either putting too much stuff in scene when you need it to be in summary. That's usually why you're an overwriter. Or if you're an underwriter, it's because you're summarizing too much stuff and it needs to be put in scene, or like your scenes themselves kind of read like narrative summary because of how thin they are. I kind of believe that if a book is over 100,000 words, it kind of depends on, you know, the genre category, what you're trying to do with it, but kind of as a general statement, so don't come for me in the comments. Most books I don't think need to be above 100,000 words. Obviously, this book is much longer. Obviously, I don't care because this is a personal project. And the longer it is, actually, the more fun it is for me, so it's not an issue, but I know that I messed up the structure somewhere along this book because I feel like we are going through like the third climax of the book. It's technically the falling action now. Is it falling? No, it is quite literally floating. So good job to me for somehow screwing that up really badly. Today, I spent some time doing clerical work for Seventh Virtue, aka filling out my reverse outline. I am a pantser. I like to reverse outline my books, especially this one because it's long. I write it very quickly and I have a bad memory. So this keeps me on top of everything. If I forget what happens, I can just reread like the scene cards on Scrivener. I have a video coming out on that. I didn't work on the reverse outline at all in NaNoWriMo because I just didn't have time, but I wrote so many chapters that I had 18 chapters. That was around 60,000 words to re-outline in this book. So that was fun. Said no one ever. It was really annoying to go back in, but at the same time, it was kind of fun because I got to see like little fun parts of the book again. You know, when you kind of scroll through the document, you see a funny interaction between characters. Most of the time it was Harrison being quite inappropriate at times where he like needed to not be inappropriate, which I think was hilarious. I think it took me about 2 hours to do the 18 chapters and it was just summarizing each scene in one sentence. But now that that's done, I'm like, whew, it's over. And I usually like to stay on top of it, do it it in like 3 to 4 chapter bunches rather than like in 18 chapter bunches, because that's really annoying. In other news, because we're at part 5, I also took some time to brainstorm stuff. I was talking to my sister, who's my critique partner, and she knows about everything fostered related, and we were talking about sort of my ideas. I have a very general direction for where I want the book to end, but there were some things I needed to iron out, some things I was like, this is making me anxious because I have no idea what is happening, and so I ironed that out a little bit. I am pretty happy with the direction. I have an idea for the next scene very loosely. I'm just gonna say good luck Harrison is the vibe. Other than that, you know, it's pretty up in the air, so we'll see how it turns out, but I'm gonna end this vlog here. The book, I have no idea how long it's gonna be. It's at 161, so I can assume it'll be like maybe 180 by the time I'm done, just because I can't see the next sequence happening in only 10,000 words. I feel like that wouldn't be paced properly. Really hoping I don't write another 200,000 word novel though. Really hoping, because the last time I did that was a couple of years ago. It was Fostered Book 3's 197,000 words. So I'm hoping we don't hit that. Are we going to? Probably, but that's not my problem right now. Good luck, future Rachel. Let me know what you guys are working on in the comments. But for now, I will see you guys in another video. Bye.